The door of the small-town barbershop creaked open like a sigh from the past, and in shuffled an old man whose face carried the weight of forgotten decades. His eyes, cloudy with age, scanned the room with a flicker of recognition that sent a chill down the spine of everyone inside. "The usual," he rasped, his voice a gravelly whisper that shattered the mundane chatter, revealing a man who wasn't just seeking a haircut but unraveling a mystery long buried. In the heart of Willow Creek, where time moved as slow as the river that wound through the fields, Eddie's barbershop stood as a relic of simpler days. Eddie Thompson, the owner, was midway through clipping the hair of young Tommy Jenkins when the bell above the door tinkled. Tommy, a wide-eyed kid of 12, froze mid-sentence about his latest baseball game. Eddie glanced up, his scissors pausing in the air. The old man who entered was a ghost from Eddie's childhood memories, Mr. Harlan Whitaker, the town's enigmatic recluse who had vanished 20 years ago without a trace. Harlan's steps were deliberate, each one echoing on the worn linoleum floor like a heartbeat from another era. He eased himself into the faded red vinyl chair, the one by the window where sunlight filtered through dusty blinds, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with secrets. Eddie wiped his hands on his apron, his heart pounding. "Mr. Whitaker? Is that really you?" he stammered, his voice laced with disbelief and a hint of fear. The other patrons, old Mr. Grady nursing a coffee in the corner and Mrs. Ellis waiting for her son's trim, exchanged wide-eyed glances, the air thick with unspoken questions. Harlan nodded slowly, his wrinkled hands gripping the armrests. The usual Eddie, just like always. But nothing was like always. Eddie hadn't seen Harlan since he was a boy apprenticing under his father, who had run the shop before him. Back then, Harlan came every Saturday, sharp as a tack, sharing stories of his days as a war veteran and a wandering soul. Then one day, he stopped coming. Rumors swirled. He'd died alone in his cabin or fled town after some scandal. Eddie, now in his 50s with gray streaking his own temples, felt a surge of emotions: curiosity, nostalgia, and an inexplicable dread. As Eddie draped the cape over Harlan's shoulders, he couldn't help but notice the changes. Harlan's once thick mane was now thin and white, his skin like parchment stretched over fragile bones. "Where have you been all these years, Mr. Whitaker?" Eddie asked, his clippers humming to life. Harlan's eyes met Eddie's in the mirror, holding a depth that made Eddie avert his gaze. "Places you'd never believe, son. Places that change a man." The shop fell silent, save for the snip of scissors and the distant hum of traffic outside. Harlan began to speak, his words weaving a tapestry of loss and longing. He talked of the war, first the trenches of Vietnam, where he'd lost his best friend, a boy from Willow Creek named Tommy's grandfather. Tommy's ears perked up at that, his fidgeting stilled. "Your granddad saved my life once," Harlan said, his voice cracking. "Took a bullet meant for me. I carried that guilt like a shadow." Eddie paused, the pieces clicking. He'd heard fragments of that story from his own father, but never the full weight of it. As the haircut progressed, Harlan delved deeper. After the war, he'd married a local girl, Eliza, but their happiness was short-lived. A tragic accident on the river claimed her life, leaving Harlan shattered. "I couldn't stay," he confessed, tears welling in his eyes. "Every corner of this town reminded me of her. So I wandered across states, through deserts and mountains, chasing ghosts." The patrons leaned in, their own lives momentarily forgotten in the grip of Harlan's tale. Mrs. Ellis dabbed at her eyes, remembering Eliza as a vibrant young woman who'd volunteered at the church. Eddie felt a knot in his throat. His own life had been marked by quiet regrets of failed marriage, a son who rarely called. Cutting Harlan's hair felt like trimming away layers of time, exposing vulnerabilities he'd long ignored. "Why come back now?" Eddie pressed gently, combing through the sparse strands. Harlan smiled faintly, a spark of mischief in his eyes. "Because some stories need an ending, Eddie. And I've got one more chapter to share." The afternoon sun dipped lower, bathing the shop in a golden hue that softened the edges of reality. Tommy, usually restless, sat transfixed, his comic book forgotten on his lap. "Did you find what you were looking for out there?" the boy asked innocently, his voice breaking the heavy silence. Harlan turned to him, his expression softening. "Sometimes, kid, what you're looking for finds you instead." As Eddie finished the sides, Harlan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a faded photograph. It showed a young Harlan and Eliza on their wedding day, laughing under a canopy of willow trees. "This is why I left," he said, passing it to Eddie. "But it's also why I returned." Eddie studied the photo, his hands trembling. Eliza's face stirred a vague memory. Hadn't his mother mentioned a distant cousin? The connection dawned slowly, but before he could voice it, the door burst open. In walked Sheriff Harlan Waite. No, that couldn't be. The newcomer was a middle-aged man in uniform, badge gleaming. "Dad?" he called out, his voice echoing with shock. The shop gasped in unison. This was Harlan's son, Jack, whom everyone thought had left town for good after high school. Jack had become the county sheriff, a fact few knew because he'd changed his last name to escape his father's shadow. The twist hit like a thunderclap. Harlan hadn't just returned. He'd orchestrated a family reunion no one saw coming. Jack strode forward, his face a mix of anger and relief. "You've been gone 20 years, and you show up here without a word?" he demanded, but his eyes betrayed the hurt of abandonment. Harlan stood shakily, the cape falling away. "I had to make things right, son, before it's too late." The room held its breath as father and son faced each other, years of unspoken pain hanging between them. Eddie stepped back, realizing this usual haircut was anything but. It was a catalyst for healing, a bridge across chasms of time. As Jack embraced his father tentatively, tears flowing freely, the shop transformed from a place of routine to one of profound connection. Mrs. Ellis whispered a prayer, Mr. Grady nodded solemnly, and Tommy watched wide-eyed, learning in that moment about forgiveness and the fragility of life. But the day wasn't over. Harlan turned to Eddie with a knowing look. "There's more to this story, Eddie. You're part of it too." Eddie's brow furrowed. What could he mean? Harlan pulled out another item from his pocket, an old letter, yellowed with age, addressed to Eddie's father. "Your dad was my confidant," Harlan explained. "He knew my secrets, and now it's time you did." The letter revealed a bombshell. Harlan had been more than a customer. He'd been a silent benefactor. After Eliza's death, he'd anonymously funded Eddie's apprenticeship when the family business nearly folded. "I owed your family," Harlan said. "Your granddad Tommy's great-granddad just saved me in the war. He was my brother in arms, and I promised to watch over his kin." Eddie reeled, the weight of gratitude crashing over him. All these years, he'd thought his father's luck had turned by chance. Now, the pieces fit Harlan's disappearances, the mysterious donations. It was a twist that reframed Eddie's entire life, infusing it with purpose and connection. As the sun set, casting long shadows, the group shared stories, laughter mingling with tears. Harlan's return wasn't just about a haircut. It was about mending broken threads in the fabric of their community. Tommy, inspired, vowed to cherish his own family. Jack promised to stay close, bridging the gap with his father. Yet, as night fell, Harlan whispered to Eddie, "This isn't the end. There's one more surprise." His eyes twinkled with mystery, hinting at deeper layers still untold. The revelation hung in the air like the scent of aftershave, lingering long after the initial shock. Eddie folded the letter carefully, his mind racing through memories of his father's quiet strength and unexplained windfalls. "Why now, Mr. Whitaker? After all this time?" Eddie asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Harlan leaned back in the chair, the weight of years etching deeper lines on his face. "Because time is a thief, Eddie. It steals moments until there's nothing left but regrets." Jack paced the floor, his sheriff's boots thudding softly. "Dad, you can't just drop this and expect everything to be fine," he said, frustration edging his words. But beneath it was a vulnerability, a boy who'd grown up without a father, forging his path in the shadows of absence. Harlan reached out, his hand trembling. "I know, Jack. I was a fool to leave, but I thought I was protecting you from my grief." Mrs. Ellis, ever the community glue, interjected softly. "Harlan, we've all missed you. The town isn't the same without your stories." Her words opened the floodgates. Mr. Grady shared how Harlan's war tales had inspired him to volunteer at the veterans' home. Tommy, emboldened, asked about the adventures during Harlan's wanderings. "Did you see the Grand Canyon? Or fight off bandits?" The boy's innocence lightened the mood, drawing chuckles. Harlan obliged, his voice gaining strength. He spoke of hitchhiking through the Southwest, sleeping under stars that seemed brighter away from home. "I met folks who'd lost everything, homes, families. Taught me that pain isn't unique. It's what binds us. He described a night in New Mexico, where a Navajo elder shared ancient wisdom about healing circles, circles that Harlan now sought to close in Willow Creek. As the conversation flowed, Eddie noticed Harlan's pallor, the way he winced occasionally. Concern gnawed at him. "You all right, Mr. Whitaker?" Harlan waved it off. "Just old bones complaining." But Eddie sensed more of fragility that spoke of finality. The door tinkled again, introducing another unexpected figure. Clara, Jack's estranged sister, whom no one had seen since she moved to the city a decade ago. Clara burst in, her coat dusted with travel, eyes wide at the sight of her father. "Jack called me," she explained breathlessly. "Said it was urgent." The family reunion escalated, emotions swirling like a storm. Clara hugged Harlan fiercely, sobs racking her frame. "You left us, Dad. Mom needed you." Eliza's memory loomed larger now. Clara revealed she'd kept her mother's diary, filled with entries about Harlan's love and the accident that stole her. "She forgave you before she passed," Clara said, handing the diary to Harlan. His hands shook as he read, tears splashing onto the pages. This twist Clara's arrival with tangible proof of forgiveness shifted the narrative, emphasizing redemption's power. Eddie, feeling like an outsider in this intimate drama, busied himself sweeping clippings. Yet Harlan drew him back in. "Eddie, your family saved mine more than once. It's time I repay in full." From his bag, Harlan produced a Diedto, the old Whitaker cabin on the hill, now worth a fortune with the town's growth. "For you and your son," he said. "Build something lasting." Eddie's eyes widened. His son, estranged after the divorce, had dreamed of starting a business. This gift could mend that rift. Gratitude overwhelmed him, but so did questions. "Why me?" Harlan smiled. "Because kindness echoes, Eddie. Your dad taught me that." The group gathered closer, sharing a makeshift meal from the diner next door. Stories intertwined: Jack's rise in law enforcement, Clara's city struggles, Tommy's aspirations. Harlan listened, his presence a balm. But as evening deepened, he grew quieter, his breath shallower. In a quiet moment, Harlan confided in Eddie. "The doctors say it's my heart failing after all these years." The admission hit hard, explaining the urgency of his return. "I wanted to make amends before." He trailed off, but the implication was clear. Eddie gripped his shoulder. "You've done more than enough." Clara and Jack, overhearing, enveloped him in hugs. The shop, once a place of idle gossip, became a sanctuary of healing. Tommy, wise beyond his years, drew a picture of the group, captioning it "Family Found." Yet, as stars dotted the sky, Harlan hinted at one final secret. "There's a box in the cabin, letters, photos, truths that could change everything." His words left them pondering, the night alive with possibility. The box in the cabin became an obsession, its contents a siren call pulling the group toward the hill under the moon's watchful eye. Eddie offered to drive, his truck rumbling along the dirt road that wound up to Harlan's old home. Jack sat shotgun, Clara and Harlan in the back with Tommy squeezed between, the boy's excitement palpable. "Is it treasure?" Tommy asked, eyes sparkling. Harlan chuckled weakly. "Of a sort, kid. The kind that weighs on the soul." The cabin loomed, overgrown with vines, a testament to neglect. Inside, dust motes danced in flashlight beams as they navigated creaky floors. Harlan directed them to a loose floorboard under the hearth. Jack pried it open, revealing a weathered metal box etched with initials, HW and EW. As Harlan unlocked it with a key from his chain, the air grew heavy with anticipation. First out were letters, dozens, yellowed and tied with ribbon. "From Eliza," Harlan explained, his voice trembling. They chronicled their courtship, dreams of a family, and the joy of Jack and Clara's births. But interspersed were confessions, Eliza's fear of Harlan's worn nightmares, her plea for him to seek help. "I ignored them," Harlan admitted, shame etching his features. "Thought I could tough it out." Clara read one aloud, her voice breaking. "My love, the war took part of you, but I see the man I married in your eyes. Come home to us." Tears flowed freely, the words bridging gaps of misunderstanding. Jack, stoic until now, wiped his eyes. "We never knew how much she loved you despite everything." Next, photos spilled forth. Harlan in uniform, Eliza radiant, family picnics by the river. One showed Eddie's father shaking Harlan's hand at a veterans event. Your dad helped me write to her during the war, Harlan revealed. Kept my spirits up. Eddie felt a swell of pride for his lineage, the quiet heroes who'd shaped lives unseen. But the twist came with a documenta will, dated just before Harlan's disappearance. It bequeathed everything to a charity for veterans, with a codicil. If my children forgive, they inherit all. Jack and Clara exchanged glances. We do, Dad, Clara whispered. We always have. The moment sealed their reconciliation, forgiveness a balm on old wounds. Tommy, rummaging gently, found a metal Harlan's purple heart, tarnished but proud. For bravery, Harlan said. But true bravery is facing your demons. He pinned it on Tommy's shirt temporarily. Keep it safe until you're ready to understand. As they sifted deeper, a journal emerged Harlan's own, chronicling his wanderings. Entries spoke of loneliness in bustling cities, kindness from strangers, and epiphanies under vast skies. I learned that home isn't a place, one read, but the people who hold your heart. The group shared passages, laughter mingling with sobs, each word a step toward healing. Eddie's mind wandered to his own son, prompting a call later that night. Come home, he urged. There's something you need to see. The cabin's revelations inspired outreach, mending his fracture too. Harlan, exhausted but content, leaned on Jack. This box was my anchor. Now it's yours. But as they prepared to leave, Harlan clutched his chest, gasping. Panic ensued. Jack radioed for help. Clara comforted. Eddie drove frantically to the hospital. In the waiting room, hours blurred. Doctors emerged. He's stable, but it's touch and go. The group huddled, prayers whispered. Tommy drew another picturia, heart mended with threads. Visiting Harlan, they found him frail but smiling. You all gave me a second chance, he said. Don't waste yours. His words ignited reflections. Jack vowed family time. Clara planned to move back. Eddie reached out more. Yet, in the quiet, Harlan whispered to Eddie, one more thing in that box, a letter for you. Back at the cabin the next day, Eddie found it. Details of a hidden fund Harlan had set up for the barbershop's future. Keep the stories alive, it read. The community rallied, visits to Harlan becoming a ritual. Willow Creek buzzed with renewed bonds, Harlan's return a catalyst for compassion. But as Harlan improved, a new mystery surfaced, an old map in the box, hinting at buried artifacts from the war. One last adventure, Harlan grinned weakly. The map unfurled like a promise of closure, its faded lines tracing paths through Willow Creek's forgotten woods. Harlan, discharged from the hospital with strict rest orders, insisted on leading the expedition. It's the final piece, he urged from his armchair in the cabin, now tidied by the group. Eddie, Jack, Clara, and Tommy gathered, the air electric with anticipation. What are we looking for, Grandpa? Tommy asked, the title slipping naturally now. Harlan's eyes gleamed. Memories buried to protect the man, perhaps a bit more. The map pointed to a spot near the river where Eliza had died, a place of sorrow turned quest. They set out at dawn, the mist rising like spirits awakening. Jack carried tools, Clara snacks, Eddie a first aid kit, Tommy boundless energy. Trekking through underbrush, conversations deepened. Jack shared policing tales, the toll of seeing humanity's worst. Your stories, Dad, kept me grounded. Clara spoke of city isolation, how the diary reconnected her to roots. Eddie admitted his fears of aging alone. Seeing you return, Mr. Whitaker, gives hope. Harlan nodded. Age isn't the end. It's a chapter rich with wisdom. At the site, an old oak marked X, they dug. Soil yielded to a tin chest, rusted but intact. Inside, war relics, dog tags, letters from fallen comrades, and a locket with Eliza's photo. But the heart, a bundle of cash, savings Harlan had hidden before leaving. For the town, he explained. To build a veterans center. The discovery overwhelmed. This wasn't just treasure, it was legacy. Jack proposed naming it after Eliza and Eddie's father. Cheers echoed, birds scattering. But emotion peaked when Harlan revealed the chest's true purpose, a time capsule for forgiveness. Each added an item: Tommy a drawing, Clara a diary page, Jack his badge pin, Eddie a barber's comb. Harlan placed his medal. Bury it again? Or share? They chose to share, inspiring a community project. Back home, Harlan's health wavered, but spirits soared. The barbershop became headquarters for planning the center, drawing locals in. Mrs. Ellis organized fundraisers. Mr. Grady shared expertise. Eddie's son arrived, drawn by the call. Reunited, they hugged amid tears. Thanks to Mr. Whitaker, Eddie said. The young man met Harlan, absorbing lessons on resilience. As weeks passed, Harlan grew weaker, his stories fewer but profound. One evening, surrounded by family, he spoke of life's tapestry. We weave threads of joy and pain. The beauty is in the pattern. In a quiet moment, Harlan passed peacefully, his hand in Jack's, smile lingering. The town mourned, but celebrated a funeral turned festival of remembrance. The center rose, a hub of healing. Tommy, grown a bit, cut the ribbon. Eddie continued haircuts, each, usual, now laced with stories. Years later, the group reflected. Harlan's return taught that it's never too late for redemption, that connections endure beyond time. In Willow Creek, the river flowed on, carrying echoes of laughter and tears, a testament to human spirit's enduring light.